Hello everyone, it is Wednesday afternoon, just about 2 o'clock. I wanted to send a little update before I send out the screen captures either this evening or tomorrow morning on setting up codes in the program and how to code data. At this point, probably a good time to start giving some thought to maybe some preliminary codes. I had a conversation during an online meeting today with one of the members of the group on due process, and we began to discuss what might be some preliminary codes. Keep in mind, as you go through the study, you can change your codes, you can add some, you can delete some if you find that they are not enough information to substantiate a code. But a good time to start thinking of it. I'll share with you then what I discussed with the due process group in terms of some preliminary codes they might want to set up. Keep in mind the research question is going to pertain to due process. So a good research question for them would be what due process issues arise in AAUP investigative reports since 2006, the time of the Garcetti decision. And that's, as we mentioned before, it's important because of the historical context. It establishes a good time frame for us, a line for us to use. We're going to think about what some kind of codes would be in terms of due process. Now, keep in mind the AAUP Committee A reports, not the investigative reports, but the background reports, have information on due process. We also talk about things like tenure, promotion, issues such as collegiality, shared governance, a whole host of issues, all of which, or most of which, will pertain to many of your studies. So you want to be familiar with those background reports, because in your findings, and particularly implications, you're probably going to draw some comparisons to what happened in the investigated cases and the recommendations the AAUP makes about how these matters, such as academic freedom, due process, should be conducted. So we decided a couple of preliminary codes. One would be what in general were the cases involving due process. What was the discrepancy? What did it have to do with? What was the context of the case? Where were their cases, and what were the context of those cases in which the institution did not follow the AAUP guidelines on due process? Another code, this would be a third code, would be where were there cases and context and details in which institutions had no due process policy, not where they violated, or where they had no due process policy. Another code would be where were there cases, details, context in which institutions had a due process policy, even if it wasn't the same as AAUP, and you could certainly elaborate on those differences. But what were the cases, the context, circumstances where institutions didn't follow their own policies, whether they were consistent with AAUP or not, or where did they not follow their own policies, if they had them, assuming they had them. Another one to look at, and this last one, I'm not sure if it would be the most fruitful, but it's best to put these things in and let the data decide, was what were the context, what were the cases, the situations where investigative reports concluded there were due process issues that could have legal ramifications as well, not just policy, but legal. Now, I suspect there aren't going to be a lot of those, knowing, being familiar with the reports as well as how they're written and the purpose. Many of them are hesitant to make legal claims or accusations, but if there is, and they're related to due process, that would be a good code to explore. So those would be preliminary codes. That would be your first stage of coding, your open coding. Once everything is sorted out into those, then we look at them in more depth within them, and then look across them as well. But that would be the first stage of coding. They can add things, they can delete things. I suspect that one on legal aspects probably not going to pan out much, but it's better to have it in there than not. So that would be one way. So each of your group will begin to develop a series of codes before you start, because you're familiar with the data set. You already have a research question developed, academic freedom, due process, tenure, as well as the other groups. So your codes will be developed based on that. And then as you go through, you'll begin to include some, revise them, maybe delete. But good time to begin thinking of codes. This evening, pardon me, or tomorrow morning, I'll send you 2 short videos. One video will be how to enter codes, how to enter the codes in that page. And then the other video will be how to highlight and assign codes. And both of those are fairly simple processes, but I think the screen captures really go a long way to help simplifying it and above and beyond just the instructions I send you that are at the end of the syllabus. All right. Well, I think that covers my homework for today, and I'll be in touch either this evening or tomorrow morning, and I'll have those 2 videos for you, and we'll keep plugging along. Other thing I wanted to add, I know some of your groups are already meeting, conversing, some via like a WhatsApp or something like that. I'm 51 years old. My 17-year-old son knows more about these things than I do. But a couple of you already set up meetings on Skype where you can converse. If you want me to be a part of any of those meetings, please feel free to let me know. My schedule is pretty open. So, if it's 5, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, whatever it might be, if you'd like me to be there, I'll be glad to. Yes, the other thing I wanted to talk about, we want to make sure that there's some consistency among us in between each group in terms of coding. So before we begin coding and agree on our codes, it would be good for us, each group, to converse and discuss what you're going to look for and how you're going to code. Now, our text has some really good guidelines on that, but when working with a team, we want to make sure that there is consistency across us in terms of coding. So one thing you might want to do, I'd recommend, is take one of the cases and have everyone code it, and then meet either online or however you want to do, meet and compare how you code, discuss where you agreed, discuss where you disagreed, so that you have a very consistent framework or expectations as you go through and code. If you'd like me to be part of that, I'll certainly be happy to. If you want me, if you decide to do so, and I really encourage that. I think that would really help you in terms of publishability as well, to be able to say in our methodology that we did that. If you'd like me to be part of that, I'll certainly be glad to participate in coding one of them with you. If we want everyone to code one of them just as a preliminary, a test sample, I'll certainly be glad to participate in that. So keep me involved and keep me as involved as you want. That's what I'm here for. So again, I'll be in touch. You know where to reach me, and making a lot of progress. Looking forward to it. Bye.